the Bowels of Netflix, where your fearless co-hosts Isaac and Larry force each other to watch the worst pieces of shit on Netflix. We will go over every bad edit, all the broken dialogue, all the wooden acting, and laugh along the way, because this is the Bowels of Netflix! Alright, welcome to the Bowels of Netflix. I'm Isaac, and with me as always is my fearless co-host Larry. How are you doing this week, Larry?
I spent the entire week trying to think up a meta way to do this opening, and I just couldn't because my brain is completely full of all the meta I could possibly ever have. There is nothing left. There is no space left. There is no Larry. There is only Director's Cut.
So you've been meted hardcore by your movie.
I can't even. I've gone full white girl. I can't even.
So yeah, this week, we are the Bowels of Netflix. You can find us online at the places, the Twitter, the Facebook. Those are both at Bowels of Netflix. You could also send us an email, bowelsofnetflix@gmail.com. If you have any suggestions for movies or anything, we'd love to hear them. Or if you've seen any of these movies, that'd be awesome to hear your take on it too. But this week, we are the Bowels of Netflix, but I forced Larry to try out a little something different. And in the future, we might have to maybe diverge from Netflix a little more just to broaden things up. For the most part, we'll stick with Netflix, but Larry, you went over to Amazon Prime Video.
I missed the bowels of Netflix. I missed being in the warm, tight anal canal that Netflix has given me, like a blanket, and I can't wait to go back and snuggle up into it again.
What was the asshole of Jeff Bezos like?
Surprisingly
just lined with gold?
Yeah. Surprisingly comfortable. I felt at home in there.
Oh, well, that's good.
My fleet of Alexas tell me they love me. I don't know how many Alexas it takes to have a fleet of them, but I'm approaching that number, whatever it may be. And you have been in my apartment. It is not large.
How many do you have?
Look, that sounds... If this was a courtroom trial, I would say objection leading question. I'm
going to assume 4.
I have more than 2.
Damn.
My apartment is not large.
Do they ever talk to each other?
Yes.
Ooh, spicy. You're going to get murdered.
By them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or, they'll hire a hitman to kill you.
Why? I keep giving them money. I do most of my shopping that isn't groceries just goes to Amazon. So really, I mean,
fair enough.
If anything, my friend whose wedding we talked about a couple episodes ago, I performed a wedding for a friend of mine who despises Amazon and says they're going to be like the jackbooted thugs that stomp over us all. And I was telling her, yeah, no, I'm going to be one of those thugs. I've decided to join the evil empire. So yeah, that said, I miss Netflix this week. Amazon Prime Video is cold comfort for change, please.
So, Director's Cut. What's the deal with this movie?
I don't know. Therein lies the question. What is the deal with this movie?
Like most of our movies, like Summer Catch, baseball sex comedy for teenagers. That's it. Done. Mm-hmm. You've explained it. Most of the other movies, you have an elevator pitch.
Yep. Story about
very easily.
Lion tries to find place while being vegetarian. Naked man gets stuck in time. Black men become white women? ? Shitty internet personalities make movies, and no one understands why.
This one is definitely a little more complicated.
The theme of today's episode, of what I'm tentatively calling and preemptively calling the worst episode of Bowels of Netflix, and by that I mean the Bowels of Amazon Prime, which I wish, I don't know if they'll have the time, I wish we had time to record a different shitty theme song for it, but you'll just have to imagine one. Maybe I'll add it in years later, and this can be a fun bonus bit.
Now that I feel like that's a challenge, like we have to do it, even though we're recording super late on schedule.
Oh, yeah, no, I can, I maybe tomorrow night. I don't know, I'll think about it. Let's see what I can do. But yeah, this movie, the theme of today's episode is how the fuck can Larry describe this? And you are going to get really tired of hearing me talk about how I cannot possibly describe this movie. Because I can't. I just can't. It's unreviewable. Also, words you're going to hear me say a lot. It's just unreviewable. It's such a fucking mess. And the sad part is it's not a mess to me. I understand precisely what's going on. I just have no way to possibly get that across to an audience. And that's going to become readily apparent. But let's talk a little bit about the backstory of it. And we have a lot to talk about, especially with the primary person featured in this. So, director's cut, May of 2018 is when it came out, although it actually was made and really came out in 2016. It just kind of existed as sort of a festival film until eventually, I forget the name of the company, some small-time horror movie company picked it up. I think they're a horror movie company. I had an article at one point that talked about the company that picked it up, but I have lost it, and I did not care to find it again because fuck you. But this movie is described as the ultimate meta movie, which that's not wrong, although in this case that sounds like it's a good thing. It is not. It is not a good thing.
Yeah.
This movie does not, on Rotten Tomatoes, there is no tomato meter available because, guess what? Nobody fucking watched this. And the audience score is 96%.
That's pretty good, Larry.
And as we mentioned at the end of last episode when you assigned me this piece of trash, which, by the way, speaking of last episode, yeah, the bonus episode for Puczynski is coming. But I'm not entirely sure when. Because, Jesus Christ, it's half an hour long, and I think I could talk about it for 6 hours. But anyway, that's a bonus adventure in the colon for another day. But director's cut, as we mentioned at the end of last episode, the lead figure in surrounding the creation of and star of this movie is one Mr. Penn Jillette.
Yes, now, which is how I found out about this movie. Because Mr. Jillette is probably the closest thing I have to, like, a celebrity hero. I mean, yeah, I disagree with him on some things, and sometimes he's just a crazy asshole. Yeah. But I really adore him and love him. I listen to his podcast. That's how I started listening to the Ice Cream Social podcast and all that stuff. So I was listening to this movie take shape as Penn's crowdfunded thing, and listen to him just talk about, the process of making it, which is really interesting, hearing all that on the podcast, and then finally being able to see it. And I thought when I saw it, I would absolutely love it. And I went into it not planning on giving it to you as a movie. I just watched it because, oh shit, director's cut's on Amazon Prime. And then I hated it. Maybe more than any other movie I've ever seen. So this was the natural choice.
You've mentioned it to me a couple of times, and that one gets me because it seems like something I kind of thought you would love.
I know. On paper, everything should be there for me.
So I'm really fascinated to talk about this with you. I'm really fascinated to get your take on a lot of this because it seems... I don't think it's the worst movie I've ever seen. I do not think it's good. It has a lot of flaws. I think it was very ambitious and did not seize upon that ambition very well. And for those of you who don't know, because we are getting to be very old men, I'm finding more gray hairs every day, and I'm 28, and I'm 27.
You need to stop going to old folks' homes and just looking at old people's heads.
Yeah, I didn't say it has to be me. I just have a weird like wall of tape in my closet that I've just been taping gray hairs to. So no, but yeah, so we are getting older, and we have to recall that people might not know who Penn Jillette is. Penn Jillette is a better man than I, because he would have turned his Snapchat noise off like a fucking professional. Penn Jillette is a very famous, probably one of the most famous in history, magicians of all time. He and his partner Teller have a magic act in Las Vegas. I believe you told me it was the Rio.
I think so, yeah.
And they've been a comedy, a magician / comedy team for 30, 40 years, a very long time.
Been working together for 40 years.
Yeah. And very, very talented magicians. Very, very smart men, very funny men. Yeah, I do not, Penn Jillette, I don't have as much of a connection to him as you do. I've always liked the man. He never struck me as a hero. I loved Bullshit. You showed me a bunch of episodes of Bullshit many years ago, and I absolutely loved that. I thought that was great. The man himself, I feel like his personality and mine would clash very much, so I have a little bit of trouble with some of the things he says. I can recognize he's a very smart man, although I don't think I want to get a drink with him. A coffee, I guess, because neither he nor I drink. But, so, yeah, and I don't agree with everything he says, but I can recognize he is incredibly intelligent, incredibly good at what he does, which makes Director's Cut really confusing. Just to why it's so bad.
Well, and Penn's a crazy, crazy man, and even though he's a teetotaler, just real quick, because one of my favorite stories, and it just gives you a window into the person who made this movie. He would always throw these crazy parties, especially before he had a family. They'd be alcohol and drug free, but they'd still be completely out of hand. One of them involved bringing a chimpanzee and inviting a little person to the party, which only after the invitations had been extended to both the chimpanzee and the little person did they realize, oh, the chimpanzee is very likely to try to rip the little person limb from limb, just because it's bigger than it, and the size is a determiner for aggression.
Did he invite them both to get them to, box? Because...
No,
I'd pay money for that.
He invited them before knowing that was an issue.
Also, I think we were getting a little jaded. He invited a chimpanzee.
Yeah, well, I guess knew the trainer and was like, hey, can you please bring your chimpanzee to this party?
And I guess you can come too, you fucking asshole.
Pretty much. Once they found out, they both still came to the party, and they just were like, oh, we'll just keep them in separate rooms, whatever.
Again, this is an animal and a human we're talking about.
Yes. But eventually, their curiosity got the best of them. And
okay, let's pause yet again. Who is their curiosity? The chimp and the little person, or Penn and his gaggle of sociopaths?
The latter.
Okay.
The little person being included in that group, I think.
Okay.
He wasn't against his will.
All right.
But, so the plan was, I think, to have him stand, on a chair behind a table or something. So he would look tall to the chimpanzee, who couldn't tell he was standing on the chair. But they did this at the end of the pool, or right near the pool. So if the chimp started running at the little person, they could just grab the little person and chuck him in the pool, and the chimp wouldn't go after him.
Oh my god. Okay.
So, and that's, I forget if he ended up going in the pool or not. I think the chimp just got kind of confused and bored and wandered away. But yeah, Penn Jillette's an insane person.
Yeah, you describe him as to a man who has too much money.
Yes, and yeah. He's a genius teenager with too much money.
Right. And we were kind of talking about Penn yesterday, and something that I kind of came to the conclusion to, and you can draw your own conclusions, and I don't think this is going to sound like an indictment just because of my feelings on the one man, but I draw a lot of similarities in a lot of ways between Penn Jillette and Kevin Smith. See, they seemingly have very similar attitudes, although Penn Jillette strikes me as a far more smarter and level-headed person, and far more just willing to be wrong in a way, and but still sort of that, because I don't despise Kevin Smith. He's not my favorite. But I feel like Penn Jillette, it strikes, and again, this is just me, and this is not maligning the man. This is the impression I get. I'll malign the shit out of his fucking movie. I don't dislike the man. I think his movie's terrible, but I get the impression that he's the sort of kind of person who will make something and then I get the impression he will fold his arms and never hear any criticism of it. And again, I have really no basis off of that other than just having listened to him talk every now and then for a while and knowing what his views are. So I find myself put into like a, I don't know, again, this comes back to me, and I think his and my personalities would clash very much if we were ever to meet. And I think that, I'm going to say, even unfairly colors some of my views towards him and his work. But that said, I think if any fucking human being who watches director's cut can see, oh, well, this is just shit.
I think from as much as I know of Penn, I think he would always be welcome to hear criticism.
Yes.
But you probably could never change his mind.
Yes, right.
And I still think there's a chance he's just a genius and this movie's just going way over my head. Although probably not.
It's not...
It's clever.
It is clever. It's just, it's a good idea and bad execution. I think I described it to you when we were talking about it as like a Lamborghini with like the little fucking streamers you put in bike handles is like just taped to the side of it. Like it's a really interesting idea, but then nothing else. It's kind of a lot because it's hard to really kind of talk about and compare it. So I'll get into this more maybe after we've actually done the review, in which I've written this review and I still don't fucking know how I'm going to do it. It's going to be bad. It's going to be fucking bad. I'm really sorry. This episode's going to be bad. If you've listened to this fucking show, and if you listen to any of my episodes, you know that I hate myself. But this one isn't on me. This one is just, I tried. This is just going to be on this movie. It's just bad or good. Just the formatted scene. It's just unreviewable in like the bowels way I do things. But I'll get into that a little more. But just because this movie, it sort of blends the reality of the movie with the movie within the movie in a very unique way. And I'll try to explain that better. But it could be very genre defining. It could be very like sort of a very clever gimmick, kind of like I think I compared it to Memento, where Memento is, for those of you who don't know, it's a very famous sort of crime thriller action movie that is played in reverse. Not like rewind on a VHS tape, but like the scenes are played in reverse. Like the ending scene of a murder is the beginning of the movie, and then we go travel backwards to find out how he reached that point. And because it's not really, it's sort of one of those things where it's never been like that before. It's never been like that again. And it's also an excellent movie, and it holds a certain place like in people's minds in the movie going mind where it's just this sort of standout landmark sort of thing. I'm going to also say, because we talked about it in great detail, Groundhog's Day, same sort of thing. Now, Groundhog's Day has had copycats.
What is it? Seen recently.
Episode 21? Yeah.
I think so, Naked.
I literally lost my mind. But, yeah, it's just those sort of, like, really, I'm going to say once in a lifetime, even though it's a cliched phrase, sort of movies where it's like the first one and maybe even only one to kind of defy certain rules about movies and turn them on their head and make them into something. And I feel like this had the potential for that and fucked it up by being terrible. And again, I don't think, because I've watched it, I think 3.5 times now, because I restarted, because I had to restart, because I had to almost throw out 2 pages of review, because I didn't know what I was doing at that point. I think it's not as bad as I thought it was originally, but it's still very bad. So, anyway, we got a little bit off track by me. The audience score is 96%, and then we started talking about Penn Jillette, because Penn Jillette has a very rabid, very dedicated fan base, although on Rotten Tomatoes, that is 96% is off of 85 user ratings.
And also, this movie is crowdfunded, so I'm sure all of the reviews are from people who put $50, $100 or more into the movie.
Right. And this is the second movie we've done that's been crowdfunded, and the other one being The Canyons, which I think this is better than The Canyons, but I think I hate this one more. But I also didn't have to watch The Canyons. Yeah, that was our last crowdfunded movie. This is our newest crowdfunded movie, and I want to guess not our last.
It's open waters for crap.
Right.
When it's crowdfunded.
Right. But yeah, so there's not a lot of reviews here. And this, when you pull this up in Amazon Prime and in, I think, IMDb too, it offers you, as like suggestions for other movies, it offers you trauma movies, which are famously low budget, high violence, high sex, high gore, high silliness movies, just high disgustingness. Sort of like they revel in being C movies, not even B movies. They revel in being C movies, and they're the kings of that. And I feel like Director's Cut, while not anything like a trauma movie in those sense, it does kind of value its spot as what it is, as like a C movie. And I think that might be part of the reason I don't like it as well, because I think I hate that. I just don't like that style of movie. That's like, yeah, this is low budget and we're going to celebrate that, because you know what? They're just generally not good. And I feel like you have to like those kind of things to like them. I hate everything about Trauma, every single thing. I think it's trash. I think it's a fucking disgusting mess. I don't think there's been a single redeemable piece of media to ever come from that company, and no amount of anyone ever showing me or telling me anything will ever convince me otherwise, because it's all garbage, throwaway garbage. And
Sergeant Kabuki, man, NYPD,
Poultrygeist. I nothing will ever be worse than the movie Poultrygeist: Night of the Chicken Dead for me. That it is my least favorite movie of all time, and that's saying a lot, considering I do a show about shitty movies. It's and I think that just really, because like the culture around it is so hoity-toity and snooty about like, yeah, we like these movies because they're trash and we revel in it, and it's great because it's like, that's real filmmaking. Like, I hate that. I don't find any joy in that. You know what? It's fine. I don't hate you for liking it. You people, anyone who may enjoy that, I personally despise it, and just the culture around it just puts a bad taste in my mouth. And Director's Cut feels like it belongs in that kind of.
I can see that parallel.
Yeah. Because it's definitely not like a trauma film at all. There's not really much violence. There's not really any gore. There's not really anything like that. But it occupies that same, it's adjacent. It occupies the same, it lives on the same street. You know? Runs in a different gang, but lives on the same street. But anyway, I could talk about the peripherals of this movie forever, because that means I don't have to talk about the actual plot, because it's so hard. It's harder than my It's harder than my cock in a harem factory. So
harem factory?
Yeah. Don't you're thinking about it? Don't think about it.
I just want to go there.
I know, seriously. If they do guided tours, let's go.
Right, yeah.
IMDb, it has a 6.1 out of 10, which is, again, a little more realistic for that. That's about average for IMDb. It's probably a little above, but again, 208 reviews. So that, to me, feels a little more evened out, which I think is telling of what the Rotten Tomatoes score is like, actually, because a 6.1 is about average for Bowles movies, which, as you've seen, they've driven you and I occasionally to the point of actual murder.
Well, don't say that on air.
Well, I mean, I haven't murdered anyone that I'm convinced anyone will ever find out about, so I don't live in a place that's easy to bury bodies. You know
Alexa's always listening.
Yeah, they are. They talk about me when I'm not home, you know. I got another Alexa in the corner just listening to the first 3. Shut up. I don't need your judgment. All right, so yeah, I think we've exhausted. Well, the periphery of Director's Cut. I mean, not really. I could go on, but let's get into it a little more, the actual plot, because I have to jump this hurdle eventually. I already feel defeated, and I haven't said a word about the plot yet. But yeah, like you said, you heard about this from his podcast, Penn Sunday School, and Ice Cream Social. You and I are both big podcast nerds. You know, I mean, we host a fucking podcast, but we also listen to a bunch. So yeah, I listen to Ice Cream Social here and there. I've never listened to Penn Sunday School, but you got to hear about. You told me not so much like the Kevin Smith way, where Kevin Smith, another parallel, talked about creating Tusk on his podcast like it was a joke. He and whoever his fucking friends are, I'm sure they're lovely people. While they were doing their podcast, they came up with Tusk. Or like, you know, I listen to Harmontown, and you can basically hear Dan Harmon. Pretty much all of his writing in Rick and Morty happens on stage, which is actually super cool. But so you didn't get to hear that, but you got to hear them talk about like the production bits and bobs behind this.
Right, yeah, and there would be like, you know, weekly updates kind of during the whole procedure. And Matt Donnelly, who hosts Ice Cream Social, he's got a small bit part in the movie, and it was cool to hear from his perspective too, of like him actually auditioning for it and then getting the part and then worrying about X, Y, or Z. And then there's some funny story where like his first day on set, he just like fucked up something and just got in the way of all the cameras, and everyone was really mad at him, and he felt embarrassed and sheepish, but it was really funny. And I usually don't get as much of that perspective of movies, of just that little human stuff of like, where do I have to stand on set?
Oh,
like,
yeah, that's the kind of thing I obsess about, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to hear all that stuff and then finally see the movie and be disgusted by it.
It's really not good. It's really... I'm really fascinated in your perspective because you got to listen to this, and you're like you said, you're a big fan of Penn. You would consider him a hero, and then this is, I don't know. I think betrayal is a strong word, but it's got to be a hell of a disappointment. I mean, for me, it's just a piece of shit that I got to figure out how the fuck to talk about. But for you, there's like a lot of build up into this. You had literally 2 podcasts where the people telling you about this thing for years, and then you actually saw it.
It's when your dog shits in the corner. You're like, I love you, you stupid fucking dog, but, great. Now there's poop in the corner.
Yeah. My dog shit into the middle of a bush today. I don't know if you've ever picked up dog shit, listeners, but when they shit into a bush, it makes it kind of impossible to pick up. So now there's just a bush, and a small bush, like maybe in the middle of my shin, just full of dog shit that I can do nothing about because it's seeped between the leaf cracks into the middle of the bush.
Well, that's your problem, Larry. I don't know why you're using your shin on a bush. It's not the right way to please a woman.
You're a bad person.
I know.
All right, so our movie opens. We gotta talk. There's something about self-aware movies that just makes them. It's very delicate. Okay.
Yes.
It's
very easy to get it wrong.
It's a very difficult road to navigate. Okay. You have to tread very carefully, and it's really hard to do, and this movie does not do it right. I don't know. I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Isaac. I don't think it's brilliant. I think it's smarter than you thought it was, but it's definitely sucks. And I definitely hate it. But
the hate is the important thing.
Oh yeah. I don't think I'm gonna get like screamy hate about it because it doesn't drive me to rage like Naked does. It was more of like anxiety because it's like I don't know how to describe this or think about it or continue to exist,
right?
Knowing that I've seen this. But our movie opens with an attention screen. It says the commentary expressed is the opinion of the movie maker alone and not the corporate hacks who butchered this movie in the first place, which is just great. I love when we just immediately break not the fourth wall, but like the 3.5 wall. Mm-hmm. The fourth wall does not... I think the fourth wall gets broken entirely, but I think also that a scholar would argue that it's not actually the fourth wall that's being broken.
Yeah, it is a weird kind of situation.
Like, that's what I'm saying. That's why I think this movie could have been brilliant. It exists in such a unique experience of movie watching that, like, it exists in a really, like, outside the space and time sort of thing. So, like, it could have been great, but it's not. It just doesn't do it. Doesn't cross the hump. So yeah, we got the usual movie opening bits here with the studios and funders and whatnot, etc. But over top of this, we are greeted by what we are going to find is the ever-present voice of Penn Jillette himself, welcoming us to his director's cut of the movie being Knocked Off. We need to pause for a second and kind of explain just what's happening here, because it's going to get bad. It's going to start bad and get worse, and then get really worse, and then just go completely off the rails.
So, I'm curious, if you buy the DVD, is there a director's commentary?
First of all, there's no way this exists in the DVD. Except...
I think that's how it got sent out to the crowdfunders.
Oh, really? Oh, God. Yeah. Well, no, because... that can't be. Because the whole... The gimmick of this movie is that the director's commentary is part of the movie, okay? So, in the universe of the movie, capital D, capital C, director's cut, that I, Larry, am watching, in that universe of the movie, like right across the first wall is this movie. It's actually a movie called Knocked Off, okay? And what we're seeing for capital D, capital C, director's cut, is the lowercase d, lowercase c, director's commentary that Penn Jillette's character, who's named Herbert Blount, is doing over top of the movie. So, the director's commentary is a character in the movie. The movie itself is a character in the movie. I know that sounds like utter lunacy, but it's actually happening, okay? The director's commentary is part of the movie. It's woven right into the movie. As you'll see as we go along, it needs to be part of it. Otherwise, you're just watching. It's what separates this from being the cop drama that it's supposedly overlaying into director's cut, the movie, which is more of an experience than a movie. For any of you who may be BoJack Horseman fans, and if you've not listened to me talk about it, get used to it, because it's my favorite piece of media ever created. It's changed my life. And in the first season, and they're on season 5, so fuck you and your spoilers. They try to make a movie about one of the characters' lives, and it stars the titular character BoJack. And his friend is pissed off at him because of a betrayal, and is constantly fucking with the director of that movie and getting him to change what the movie is more and more, until eventually it goes from being a film to a bi-monthly curated basket of snacks. And that's basically what this is. It started off as this movie called Knocked... And when I say it started off, I'm talking about this is all within the universe of the movie. It started off as this one thing, which is this cop drama called Knocked Off, and turned into this artisanal bi-monthly curated basket of snacks that is director's cut. So bear with me here when I try to explain just what the fuck is happening at any given point. So the director's commentary is part of the movie. Penn, I think I have him as Penn. It's not Penn himself, because Penn is a character. Penn in the real world, our world, in the fucking A. In our world, Penn Jillette wrote the movie. In the movie world, Penn Jillette's character directed part of the movie, kind of. And he's the one giving the commentary, acting as the director. And I'll explain as best I can as we go along. So as the credits roll along here, we listen to Penn, and his character's name is Herbert. I have it as Penn in my notes. I'm going to try to replace it with Herbert as much as I can remember to. So we listen to Herbert gush about the star Knocked Off, which is, again, the movie within the movie. And that stars an actress named Missy Pyle. I meant to look her up, and I forgot. He mentioned something else she's in. She's like a middling B actress. She seems fine. I don't really know any of her work off the top of my head. But she, I have no real complaints about her. But we'll get to it. As the credits roll, the actors and production staff's names are being graffitied or crossed out, seemingly by Herbert. And it's here that I realize I literally have to fucking review 2 movies. Because Herbert is giving a non-stop stream of consciousness throughout the entire fucking movie, while there is an actual movie happening underneath it. And that's before it becomes two different movies rolled into one, which we'll get to. What happens is an eternal feedback loop in which I stare at every scene, watch it twice, watch it a third time, trying to figure out what exactly is the best takeaway to get out of all this. I'm just sitting there paralyzed with the decision as suddenly the horror dawns on me that this movie is unreviewable. And as you'll see from my actual review, I think I grapple with that Grendel for about 6 pages of this 8-page review before I give up. So bear with me for what I say again is certainly the worst review of the history of this entire show. But yeah, so I'm 1 minute into the movie and I've had to stop 4 different times and ruminate on how exactly I'm going to fucking talk about all this and explain this in any sort of way that makes sense.
Your agony is delightful.
My original plan was to hire someone or convince a friend to come in and to be the one to explain the knocked off movie parts while I just talk about the real parts of the movie, which is the Herbert commentary track. I thought I could explain the entirety of Knocked Off in the beginning, and I still may do that, and then just go over the pure Herbert parts, just touching upon the points that need to be touched when Herbert discusses them. All I've decided is that it's impossible to do it in a way that is ever going to make me happy. So, fuck you, Isaac. Fuck you, Penn Jillette. Fuck you, Adam Rifkin. You can all suck my taint for making me do this. Adam Rifkin is the actual director, both in the movie and in real life. Fuck you all. Fucking taint-licking, paint-slicking, hash-slinging slasher. Alright, so the credits are easy enough anyway. They themselves are just generic horror credits with, as I said, Herbert Penn drawing over them. He draws on the actors and actresses and the staff, and swooning over the lead starlet, who is Missy Pyle. He knows an absurd amount of details about her, and he talks about how good she is. Herbert tells us he's a filmmaker, and he had to seize the footage from the original director, Adam Rifkin, and edit in his own version as corporate greed tore apart his original vision. He claims what we'll be seeing is the director's cut, hence the name of the movie in the real world, even though the movie in the movie world is still Knocked Off, director's cut. I want to die. in this might, I thought about this on the drive home from work today as I was dreading this, and I thought about a good way to maybe describe sort of Herbert as he is to this movie. Kind of how, if anyone's familiar with Always Sunny in Philadelphia, in the first season it's just the 3 characters, Dennis, Mac, Charlie, and Dee. The 3 actors who wrote the show and the actress they got to play in it with them. And then in season 2, they're joined by Danny DeVito. And in real life, Danny DeVito basically loved the show and came in and said, I want to be a part of this. I want to help fund it. I want to be a character because it looks amazing. And then they write him into the show as like a rich guy who's one of their dads who came in to be part of the show. Kind of how this Penn's character in this works, where he's kind of playing Penn Jillette for a while.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to separate Herbert Blount and Penn Jillette until, he starts kidnapping people. Oh my God, Isaac, I keep trying to make logical sense of it, and all I'm doing is making it worse.
It's like you're trying to rationalize an MC Escher drawing.
There's just no way. All right, so yeah, so we're looking at the credits. Herbert tells us that the movie was crowdfunded, and he was one of the original crowdfunders. We see his name in the credits. This is true of both the movie within the movie and the movie in real life, and also the movie in the movie world. You liked white chicks, you'll love this. You see what I fucking mean? The layers of this movie are just all askew to the point we'll never be able to keep up. And along those lines, the entire movie has fucking Herbert giving us an endless stream of dialogue, just like an actual director's commentary. So, and there's the occasional gag, but mostly it's him just doing essentially director's commentary until about like the last third of the movie where it goes insane. And I'm really glad you saw this too, Isaac, because I have a lot of questions to your thoughts about how some of these plot points play out. Because it's almost good. It's almost there. And just the fact that it's almost there and doesn't hit the ramp just makes it a failure in my eyes.
That when you're doing something this meta, you either get there or you don't. There's no middle ground.
Right. When you go to watch Evel Knievel jump the Grand Canyon, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what part of the Grand Canyon he falls in. If he doesn't make it to the other side, it's a failure. It is evolve or die. It is sink or swim. There is no middle ground here. It did not hit the point, so it failed. It is dead at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. His kids are crying. His wife is probably distraught. I don't know. I don't know anything about Evel Knievel. Either one. I think, are they both dead now?
I don't know.
Don't let me get off track. I'm trying to not talk about this. Don't let me. God damn it. All right. So yeah, if you've listened to even one of my reviews, you can tell I'm a heavy on the details kind of guy. I made Isaac make fucking lists for Naked, if you remember that. Everything with me is insane. I like to touch on every single touch point I can get my hands on to disseminate it and get the complete picture. But for this movie, that would be literally impossible. I could not keep up with the 2, occasionally 3, astonishingly sometimes 4 concurrent plot lines happening on screen at once. I'm not lying. So I'm just going to try and take a step back, draw myself in, and just try to get major points. The difficulty there is that there's so much of Herbert's character revealed in the endless stream of commentary that he's giving. It's going to be difficult to really get out just exactly how the plot is supposed to play out. We don't get to see the escalation that Herbert's character has, because you kind of need to see that for this to make sense. And that's the thing, too. If you watch this, it's not that hard to follow. It's really hard to explain, but if you watch it, you can see where it's going and how it happens, and the problem there is that it just ends up being like a long, drawn-out, wet fart, and not really anything enjoyable. Jesus Christ, it's been 45 minutes, and I'm on page 1.
You handsome devil.
Yeah, God. So I'm going to do my best. It's very difficult to suss out. This is more suited to your beautiful way of picking apart a movie into its key points and the way you frame things and get across everything. I'm envious of that, and I'm really envious of it now that I have a movie that'd be perfectly suited for it.
I don't know if you've seen any of the movies I've reviewed, because I don't think my reviews are that astute.
I've seen B-Movie, and I technically saw Flintstones 2 when I was 14, I think. I don't know. No, I think you do a fine job. Yeah. But anyway, Penn tells us Herbert tells us he is the director, even though we see clearly from the credits that he is not, and he crosses out the director's name and writes his own, among other graffiti.
Adorable. So
we cut to the interior of a police station. A cop is dragging a hooer into the station while Herbert tells us that she was in fact a crowdfunder. Herbert tells us how great crowdfunding is, pointing out all the crowdfunded actors in this shot, and how a lot of the actors in the movie were crowdfunders in the first place. I think I had asked you if you'd funded anything on Kickstarter before, and you said you hadn't. I've never funded a movie, nor would I ever want to. It's a lot of money for just having a line in a fucking movie that no one's ever going to see like this. I can't imagine the people who have speaking roles in this movie. I can't imagine how much money they put into it to get to say one line as Cop B.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, for us, I don't know, or I'll look at a Patreon for last podcast on the left, and they have the $50 tier or something, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, who has $50 a month to just spend on that?
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of people who have real money, unlike us.
Yeah, no.
Where that could just be, oh yeah, I'll do $500 to crowdfund this movie.
Right, yeah.
And that's just...
It's a problem that when I go on a date and then come home and it's like, ooh, hope that dinner was good, because that's dinner for today, tomorrow, and the day after. So, I guess if you have money to... But see, I'll put money towards a Kickstarter for, a board game. I'll get something tangible out of it. And I have, or a video game or something like that. But, I don't know. I wouldn't put money into it. I think it's just a fascinating thing, because Kickstarter, Patreon, all those things are such a big part of our society now. I wouldn't put money towards a one-time thing, really, unless it was something tangible I could have forever. Just having a bit roll in a Kickstarted movie does not mean much to me. Who the fuck saw a director's cut? 208 people on IMDb, the people who crowdfunded it, and us. So, And maybe,
if I had money to blow, I would do it. I wouldn't save up $500 to do it now, but
even if I was a millionaire, I don't think I'd do it. I'd
go for it.
If you made a movie, I would give you money to put me in it. Although I assume if you made a fucking movie, I better have at least 2 speaking lines in it, you motherfucker.
Yeah, but they're going to be different characters in different movies within that movie.
Well, that would be fitting with this fucking movie. I assume you're going to say it would just be, my speaking lines would be filmed with a just large cock in my mouth, so it wouldn't be really... Because that's what I do to you, because, fuck you for everything you've maybe watched in the show.
The wheels are turning. I'm starting to write now.
I'm telling you, we could write porn. No, stop. If I start talking about writing porn, we're going to be here for the rest of our goddamn lives. So, we're introduced to one of the leads of Knocked Off, who was a detective named, and I started this review by writing down the characters' names, but I'm just going to talk about the actors' names, because actually, that doesn't work either. Oh, God. All right. So, this detective is named Godfrey. He is played by Harry Hamlin. Now, the character Godfrey and the actor portraying the character Godfrey are 2 different characters in this movie, in 2 different plot lines, occasionally 3. It's sometimes occupying the same scene. So just bear with me. And yeah, this movie, this Knocked Off movie, is like a shitty detective drama. We'll get to the entire plot of that here shortly, but yeah, it's like a smoky sort of like early 2000s, late 90s sort of cop drama that's not very well written. And this character Godfrey is like, we see him, he's shouting into a phone, he's like saying, "Oh, fuck you," and hanging up, and he's constantly got a vape in his mouth because it's product placement apparently for the crowdfunding part. Whatever. Yeah, so let's see here. Blah blah blah. So yeah, God, I'm looking at my own review, and I swear to God, the words are fucking like spiraling on the page.
I think Alexa's fucking with you.
I can't. So all right. So yeah, we have Herbert talking about this character Godfrey, and we can tell immediately that Herbert doesn't like him. We also saw that Herbert crossed out the actor Harry Hamlin's name on the credit screen and replaced it with like unrepentant tongue rapist. So we can see already that we haven't really got Herbert interfering with the plot yet, but that's going to happen. But we get immediately that Herbert does not like the character or the man, the character Godfrey or the actor Harry, who again same person. Just try your best to keep up. That sounds condescending, but it's not. Just seriously try your best. I don't hold it against you. And Godfrey's partner his character's name is Reed. He is played by Hayes MacArthur, both who is acting as Reed and as Hayes MacArthur himself in the movie, even though that's who he is in real life too. I really just I hate Penn Jillette right now. The chief, so they're kind of talking back and forth about cases and stuff, and the chief of police kind of bursts through the door. Herbert notes that the chief of police in movies is usually played by an exasperated African American man, which does make me chuckle because it's not wrong.
Yeah.
There's a handful of okay jokes in this, and that was one of them. But this is, in fact, the old woman from Insidious, a horror movie which made me almost pee my pants for real.
Nice.
I'm a massive coward when it comes to horror movies. 2 friends of mine literally held my arms down so I could not escape and made me watch it.
Oh, we got Halloween coming up soon. I'm going to have to find you a horror movie.
I'll suck yo dick. You can take that as a promise of blackmail or as a threat, because it's meant as both. Isaac, I'll fucking suck your dick. And neither of us want that, motherfucker.
Whoa. Hold on.
So,
hole's a hole, Larry.
Dying for real. All right. So the police chief shows the 2 detectives pictures of a crime scene. It's a brutal murder. People all cut up, blood everywhere. Reed, the straight-laced partner, tells Godfrey and the chief that this is a recreation of an Albert Fish crime scene. Now, the plot of this movie within the movie is actually quite cool for a couple of reasons. like I said, Isaac and I are big podcast nerds. And as you've mentioned in this episode already, we're big fans of Last Podcast on the Left, which is absolutely fantastic podcast. I mean, they're now very rich men, so listen to us before you listen to them because they don't need the listenership and we do. But you turned me on to them and it's great. And they do aliens, the occult, ghosts, all that stuff, and famously serial killers. And this movie inside of Director's Cut, which is Knocked Off, is about a murderer who recreates serial killer crime scenes by murdering people. And it's kind of neat because I've been listening to the Last Podcast on the Left for a long time now, I actually know a lot of facts about all these murders. So it's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't he get Albert Fish wrong? Because didn't Albert Fish just kill children, like, one at a time? See, and you said there's multiple people at this crime scene?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I actually wanted to go back and listen to the Albert Fish episode, and they just ran out of time.
I'm pretty sure that was his MO.
Okay.
Sneak a little child off somewhere and then rape it, eat it, kill it.
They did get the part right because in this movie, Isaac is not wrong. That is what Albert Fish did: rape, eat, and kill children. He was a monster.
Yes,
but yeah,
also put needles in his taint.
Yeah, well, because in Director's Cut / Knocked Off, he gets paddled with a paddle full of nails, that is something Albert Fish did. He had his children do to him, actually.
Yeah,
and in this movie, we see that, and it shows like a recreation. It basically like cuts to what the murderer was doing before the murders, and it shows Albert Fish. And remember, anytime I talk about Knocked Off, just remember, please, that Penn Jillette as Herbert Blount is giving constant commentary over it. So anytime, I just assume there's a low-level headache in the back of my head when I'm describing these plots to you.
It's probably what it's like to be schizophrenic.
Honestly, yeah. No, I that's probably close to it. It's gotta be, right? So yeah, there's like a bunch of corpses around, and there's a topless prostitute, I assume, who's like spanking Albert Fish with a fucking paddle full of nails. Blah blah blah. And so yeah, so that's kind of cool that we get. They talk about a lot of serial killers as like, hey, I know details about all of them. And I wanted to go back and listen to the Albert Fish episodes because I hadn't listened to them in a while and I wanted a refresher. But I listened to Leonard Lake and Charles Ng again because I wanted you to know what I bring to podcast, Isaac. Anyways, let me stop sucking their dick now. So, we see that Albert Fish stirring up the human soup. We see the recreation of that, blah, blah. Cut back to the detectives, and they're like, the chief is kind of suspicious of Reed because he knows all the details because he's a crime buff, and Godfrey's just like, oh, this is all a bunch of shit. These fucking killer's crazy. At this point of the review, I want to point out we're at currently, stuff gets cut down, but currently we're at 56 minutes and 45 seconds-ish. And I've discussed 8 minutes of movie.
I think that's the worst ratio we've had so far.
And at this point, I had been trying to do the review, but write my notes. I had been trying for 2 hours. Because I didn't know what to do. I kept stopping and being like, well, Penn's talking about this, but this plot, and like knowing what was coming, it's like, do I talk about the plot? So what I decided I was going to do at this point was I'm going to get to the point where I get the star of the movie, Missy Pyle, the star of all of the movies in the fucking director's cut. Oh my God. Well, I'm going to get to her, and then I'm going to describe to you the entire plot of Knocked Off, because really, that doesn't matter, okay? What's going to matter is the director's commentary. The character that is the director's commentary is the important part, and we're going to get to that. That's the thing we need to focus on. We need to get this fucking shitty cop drama plot out of the way. So, yeah. The detectives are talking with the chief about these crimes. There's been a bunch of these recreation murders, like Henry Lee Lucas, Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, Charles Manson, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, so the chief tells the detectives that she got them help in this case. And they go to the parking garage, and we see the star enter, being Missy Pyle, who plays a character named Mabel in the movie. In the movie. Fuck's sake. So, Herbert loses his shit and spends 2 solid minutes just sucking her dick and talking about movie entrances. He calls her entrance one of the greatest movie entrances of all time. And here we get the first real taste of Herbert interfering with the movie. he's been steadily writing things on screen and giving us, like, talking about continuity errors, etc., and crossing out names, whatever. But this is the first time we see him actually altering the movie itself. He slows down the shot of her walking in, zooming uncomfortably close onto her face as he mutters sweet nothings at her, essentially. So, anyway, she's from the FBI. She's here to help the detectives solve the case. But we got to get to the knocked off plot because it's really not important to the movie. Because what's important is the relationship between Herbert and Missy Pyle, which currently they have no relationship because currently this is a director's commentary over top of just a movie that's filmed. That'd be like saying me watching Die Hard, and then that'd be like me watching Die Hard, and then this podcast being Isaac talking about my relationship with Bruce Willis. That is where we're currently at. But I promise you, the plot is about the relationship between Missy Pyle and Herbert Blount. So the plot of Director's Cut, the plot of Knocked Off, the plot of Director's Cut can suck my fucking taint. The plot of Knocked Off, god damn it, I'm gonna fucking kill you, it happens as such, right? We have these detectives investigating these recreation murders, okay? They're investigating with this FBI detective, Missy Pyle, and in the middle of them investigating, we get the recreation of the Charles Whitman clock tower shootings, which famously was Charles Whitman went to a clock tower and shot a bunch of people and then died, or was shot by a Texan. Probably both, honestly. It was Texas. In the middle of this, they're investigating, and they catch someone who they think is the killer and turns out not to be, and they rough that guy up, and Godfrey is taken off the case. He starts fucking Missy Pyle's character, who is Mabel.
The guy they interrogate, that's where he gets all creepy and like jizzes in his pants, right?
Yeah, and we'll talk about that scene because there's this is just a brief overview of the knocked off plot.
Do you know who that actor is?
Oh yeah. I have a lot to say about that. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
But because they rough up a suspect basically, and that gets Godfrey kicked off the case. And again, this is the plot of Knocked Off, not Director's Cut. This is the plot of the movie within the movie, right? So
gotcha.
Yeah. Godfrey gets kicked off the case. Missy Pyle's character, Mabel, starts fucking Godfrey for no real reason, but because the Knocked Off is not a good movie. But it's not supposed to be a good movie in the context of capital D, capital C Director's Cut. So the investigation into these Knocked Off murders reveals that someone on the force is responsible. All evidence points to it being Godfrey. Eventually, the investigation goes along, and Godfrey and Mabel figure out that it's Godfrey's partner who's the killer, his partner Reed. Then it leads to a massive shootout at the end, because Reed's been leading him on with all the knowledge of these murders. Leads to a big shootout at the end, and they finish him off and successfully stop the murders. Okay? That is the plot of the movie Knocked Off, and that the impetus of Director's Cut is that we're seeing the Director's Cut of that movie. Okay? I maybe this is not hard to understand, and I'm making it harder than it is, but I feel like I've still not explained it well enough. But so what we're going to be seeing now is the director's cut of that plot, and as we're going to find out, it's way more than just a director's cut. It's way more than just added scenes. It's the diary of a madman, pretty much. And, we'll get to all that. So I'll refresh on those points as we go along, because we are going to follow that plot line for a little bit until we get completely off the fucking rails with Herbert. I was hoping this would be a short episode because I didn't know what to talk about, but it turns out I talked so much about not knowing what to talk about, I've wasted all of your time, so congratulations. But in doing that, I've also wasted Isaac's time, which is about the only revenge I can get for making me watch this. He could have just kept this to his own private masturbation sessions, but he involved my cum into it too, so here we go.
It's going to be really hard to edge myself for another hour.
Yeah, I know. I hope when you come, it's terrible. I hope you blue ball so hard that one of them literally deflates. On the commentary track, the detectives have just met Mabel, Missy's character, for being... They're downplaying her for being a woman. Herbert starts calling them gay for no reason that I don't... It's a weird... I bring it up here because in a weird, constant bit of fucking, like, Herbert completely bashing these two detectives and cops in general, he never really... It doesn't get offensive, but he just randomly calls them gay, and it seems out of place, and I didn't like it. It's just... He just says something like, you'd think two gay guys could get along with a woman better, but it doesn't... doesn't come up again, doesn't go anywhere. It's like, well, it doesn't fit with Herbert's character either. And I know very much about Herbert's character because he never shuts the fuck up. It's literally, the movie is him talking at me, at the viewer. So I know exactly who his character is, and it didn't fit, and it only comes up this once. If it was like something he kept saying about them, okay, right, yeah, that would be one thing, yeah. But this is just like that doesn't seem like, no, you don't need that. Why? Yeah, it's dumb. I didn't like it. Anyway, the detectives and Missy go to the fish crime scene. The detective trio knock on a neighbor's door to try and investigate, and they find that neighbor is Gilbert Gottfried, who Penn tells us was in Problem Child 2, which is another joke I liked because that's not his most... pointing out an actor for a role they're not famous for is a gag I've always loved, so I'll give you credit there. Yeah. The detectives are talking to Gilbert. We get... Herbert is hyping up this shot that's a special deleted scene that he added back into the movie, saying the original director should never have taken it out. And we find out it's just a candid shot of Missy smiling with the time code underneath it, and Penn describing Missy smiling. And this is the first of many such scenes, so, get used to that. The only note I have for this whole scene, not enough Gilbert Gottfried. I love that man.
You always want more Gilbert.
Yeah, no, yeah. I fucking love that man. Also, he is, super fascinating as a human being, by the way. Okay, I don't want to get off track anymore, but I actually want to talk about this. The guy who created the documentary about Dan Harmon's podcast, the podcast is Harmontown, the documentary is Harmontown, he basically just followed Gilbert Gottfried around until Gilbert would talk to him and, actually just... he wasn't, a dick about it. He wasn't, a paparazzi. But, he, very politely followed him around and just eventually just learned a lot of candid information about Gilbert Gottfried. He's, one of the coolest people I've ever met. Or, not I've never met, but, ever heard about. He is a fascinating, complicated man.
Oh, yeah.
I forget what that... I think the documentary is just called Gilbert. I have to look. I want to look at that. It sounds fascinating.
He and Penn are very good friends.
I believe it.
And he's been on Penn's podcast. So if you're ever curious, putting a toe in Penn's podcast, just listen to one of those with Gilbert Gottfried on, because it's actually fucking hilarious.
Because besides being a very funny man, he is a very deep person, and a lot of his humor comes from his silly voice and sort of personality. But that's not his voice. First of all, that is a voice he puts on, and he's a really deep. I don't know. I learned a lot about him, and it's fascinating. So, but yeah, and it makes me want to see more of him, and just seeing him as a weird bit part here just pissed me off even more. Right, but that's the intention. That is Penn Jillette's intention with it, to as character development for Herbert, because he literally fast forwards through this scene at one point.
Okay.
Yeah, he skips part of a Gilbert speech to get to the next scene because the next scene has more Missy Pyle in it. So
his obsession's unfolding.
Yes, and that is technically good movie making, but I fucking hate it. So
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Oh, and also Herbert is berating. He's talking about how stupid it is for people in movies to let cops in without a warrant. They always have to have a warrant. You can't let cops in. That's so stupid. We'll get to that later. Yeah, and also while they're talking to Gilbert about the murders, Herbert comments that the writer for this just read Wikipedia for his murder information. Penn himself wrote this movie. Fuck you, Penn. Okay? Go fuck yourself. All right?
One more level of meta.
You're a cool dude, but go fuck yourself with this meta bullshit. And we get more Missy candid footage, blah, blah, blah. We see that we cut to a strip club. And now, Isaac, do you remember who the DJ of the strip club is?
I don't, actually.
The DJ of the strip club is Ron Jeremy.
Oh, Ron, right.
Which
he and Penn are also good friends.
Yeah. We get another, which, boy, that is a podcast I want to listen to. Gilbert Gottfried, Penn Jillette, and Ron Jeremy in the same room.
I don't know if Ron Jeremy's ever been on the podcast.
I hear he is maybe kind of an asshole, but I can't really confirm that, because I heard it from an asshole. So, and yeah, Herbert makes a joke here, they said this guy's in a lot of movies, but I don't know anything he's been in. Yeah, because for those of you who don't know, Ron Jeremy is a very, very famous porn star, probably one of the most famous male porn star, I would say. I don't even know he does porn anymore, but he's an
old man now.
Yeah, He's a bit part in probably hundreds of movies, just because it's like, oh hey, that's Ron Jeremy. That dude has a massive cock.
Yep, he's in Boondock Saints.
Yeah, he's in it. He's in a ton of stuff. And in fact, in a previous lifetime, in a previous iteration of this show, Isaac, you and I kept randomly stumbling into movies he was in.
Oh,
I
right,
believe we had like 4 in a row that just he kept appearing in. So every time I see him, I think of us and I smile. Whenever I see Ron Jeremy's thick, throbbing, veiny cock, I think of Isaac Early's smiling face. So, Penn tells us that he left the strip club scene in the movie to highlight the filthiness of the club contrasted against the purity of Missy. This guy's fucking obsessed with Missy Pyle, okay? And we see that more and more, and it's going to get crazier and crazier. But that is the takeaway here. And yeah, and we see and he never really refers to her character. He always calls her Missy. Now, I've been going back and forth because it's very difficult to keep these things straight in an audio review where you're not looking at the things. I'm trying just to get information out to you. But Herbert always refers to her, the actress and the character, as Missy. Because, as we're going to see, for Herbert, he starts to mix fantasy and reality. But Missy Pyle's character up till now has been like a just generic FBI agent who's been vaguely saucy, but not really anything. So, it's a whole shit. And, yeah, his view of her is very unrealistic. And as we're going to see, that's going to continue to get worse. We get another edit, another Herbert edit of Missy's face, doing the same, as we see like the same pan around the strip club that he plays over and over in slower and slower motion. We note here that Herbert himself, now obviously we don't know this yet, but I know who Penn Jillette is and what he looks like, so we can see him in the background of this shot like smiling into the camera. Not in a creepy way, in a big, goofy, dumb gorilla way. Right. And like he's over her shoulder. Like they're at a table at the strip club and he is at the strip bar? The strip runway? Pole? Stage? Stage. Yeah. Let's say stage. He's at the strip stage. I don't fucking know what it's called. I've never been to a strip club. So, it's just a little sign of what's to come. And he doesn't highlight it yet. He will. But I saw it immediately. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. Because at this point, my first watching, I didn't know what was going to be happening. I didn't realize he was going to be a character in this movie. But he is. So in our next scene, to continue to highlight how shit's going to go off the rails, is of Missy Pyle. As Missy Pyle, just the actress, who's now being stalked by Herbert with like a little handheld GoPro, who is, again, he's talking over this scene as if he's still doing director's commentary, because this is a scene he's added into the movie. So we can kind of start to see that, okay, we're getting a little creepy here. This guy has added to his direct, quote unquote, director's cut, uppercase and lowercase D&C, that this is his like home footage, and he's stalking this woman. Yeah, and so yeah, he's also a little bit delusional, because as he's like as she's walking down the street, she like looks in a shop and is just like living her life, the actress Missy, and he says like, Missy needs time to think about the case and not be near the detectives, and he's talking about her as if she's still in character. Right. So the delusions we see just start to begin, and they're only going to get worse. And the next scene, we cut back into Knocked Off again, which you can kind of tell too, because it's got like the grainy, detective-y sort of film texture over it, and not like GoPro footage. Right. So yeah, the next scene is I skipped the scene where he talks about a character in fucking Lost or some shit. I don't remember. We get the Knocked Off is a recreation of Charles Whitman, the Texas Tower Sniper. And in this, we get the thing that I hate in movies, which is just having to watch innocents be senselessly murdered. Now, I know I complained about this a lot in Code of Honor, where at one point bad guys are shooting into crowds of innocent dancers, and it makes my skin crawl. I don't like it. It's too close to real life for me. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't like to see it in an entertainment medium. Whatever, think of me what you will, that's fine. I have my own opinion, you have yours. And this is a little better because it's a recreation of an actual crime, although it still made me very uncomfortable to watch people get shot in the head, just like teenage students. It's uncomfortable, okay?
Yeah, it's one thing if it's like a war movie or like, I don't know.
A character
or like the bad
in a
guys
movie.
are getting
Right,
killed.
right.
Yeah.
The bad guy
But
at the end of this movie gets riddled with bullets. That's fine. He's a character. I don't like seeing innocent passerby get hurt. Okay, it's a weird hang-up of mine. I don't like it in movies. Whatever. It happens here. It's a little better because and also it's in the context of this movie. It's just a reenactment. These are actors in the movie. They're actors as actors. So shut the fuck up, Beard. Why you bother? We got another Herbert edited scene here where we see Herbert himself running onto the field in a big, stupid, colorful suit with big, stupid hair. He's acting terribly, and he ruins the shot completely, which is a fact that will continue to come up. And Herbert circles himself and says, "This guy's a major character and is very important to the movie later. They never should have cut him out."
Right.
Oh, my fucking God. The next scene is, again, from Stalker Vision, handheld camera, where Penn sneaks into Missy's hotel room and is touching up on her clothes and her panties. We see him completely bug the room, her actual hotel room. And again, this is part of the movie. By that I mean the knocked off movie, where, like, this is not... It never breaks from being the director's cut of the movie. Like, Herbert's character added this in as part of the movie. I hope this is making sense. I'm really trying. I'm so sorry. So he bugs her hotel room, Missy Pyle's hotel room. And later on, the next scene, we see her in that hotel room getting undressed while she's on the phone with a girlfriend, just talking about her day and talking about the movie, the knocked off movie. And this is all shot from Penn's secret camera angles. Penn tells us that Missy is reporting to her FBI supervisor. This shit is why I tell you the knocked off plot doesn't really matter. It all turns out to be a vehicle for Penn's version of this movie to exist, or Herbert's version of this movie to exist. Herbert's version being a cobbled together story of half of a horror movie stuck to half behind the scenes footage, stuck to half candid footage, stuck to half stalker footage, stuck to half of an actual kidnapping. Put yourself in my shoes. It's really fucking hard to describe in any sort of logical sense without sounding like just fucking word vomit. So Penn is watching Missy, the actress, across the street and calls the hotel phone as himself, telling her she needs to get to the site of the killing. He calls and says, like, "There's been another knocked off murder." And she's like, "Who the fuck is this? Don't call me again. How dare you?" So it's been 20 minutes of the movie. I'm already done. In Knocked Off, the detectives go back to the clock tower where the murders just took place. One of the detectives, Godfrey, goes up the tower where he sees someone has a rifle trained on Mabel and Reed, who are Missy's character, and MacArthur. God fucking damn it. And we see that the person portraying this person who has a bead on our heroes in Knocked Off is Teller, Penn's real-life magician partner. Oh my God. So,
who's also famous bit in their magic act is that he does not speak.
Yes.
So, like, casual people who just kind of know if Penn and Teller might have seen a show here or there, they've never heard him talk. And
right.
He gives interviews, he does roles and things. Mm-hmm. But yeah. It's usually jarring for people, the first time.
It was because I knew that he did, because I listened to Ice Cream Social enough to know that he did speak. And I've heard from you and from other people that he has done roles, but primarily in his famous act, he does not speak ever. Like, that's just not what he does. So
the genesis of that, very interestingly, was doing magic at frat parties. And if he was silent, it was a lot harder for drunk college kids to heckle him. Whereas if he was talking and he was like, "Look at this quarter, watch it disappear," it'd be a lot easier to get heckled. Mm-hmm. Which is an interesting bit of human psychology.
Yeah, and it makes for a very good act because the two of them are very good at playing off each other in that sense, where Penn is very much the boisterous, loud, quick carnival barker talker, and Penn is the silent, sort of sometimes a straight man, sometimes the butt of the joke, sometimes he gets one over. It works. It very much works for the two of them. Very talented men, both of them. But yeah, and to break the fourth cubed, or 6 dimensions deep wall, as we see Teller, Godfrey, Teller's character in the fucking movie, Godfrey has a gun on him, and he says, "You have the right to remain silent." And then Herbert even says, "That's what we call an in-joke." And that's so many layers of meta. It's like, it makes me upset. I'm upset at how meta it is, considering everything happening in this movie. Like, it's technically clever, but also fuck you. You fucking asshole. Yeah, my dick in your ass is an inside joke, you fucking asshole. So this, Teller, in interrogation, reveals that he isn't the killer and intentionally got himself caught just to get roughed up by police, which literally makes him cum. So Godfrey starts like roughing him up, and he literally comes his pants, and that's it. That's his only bit. And fucking Herbert, again, who recall is played by Penn, spends the entire time saying, "This guy's such a creepo. He weirds me out. Everything about him is so strange." And yeah, it's so, fuck you. Stop it. Stop being so meta. It's okay. The horse is dead. You've killed it. Fuck. So, the next scene, we have Penn. Again, we have stalker handheld vision. We see he's stalking Missy into disguise this time. He's disguised as Boba Fett. And we don't see it. He just tells us. And he's like asking Missy questions about the movie. Again, treating her like she's her character. And she kind of waves him off. But anyway, back in the strip club, we see that inside Knocked Off, at this point, Godfrey's gotten kicked off the case for making Teller cum his pants. And we see that Mabel, Missy's character, and Godfrey are hooking up, which culminates in the two of them going back to Missy's apartment to fuck. Penn spends the entire sex scene complaining about how Missy did all this against her will, was forced to say these things. Like, do I really need to keep talking about this? Can we just call it here? Can we just say, go to the tweet your emails and twat your Facebooks and so yeah, like Teller or fuck, God, now I'm getting them confused. Penn, Herbert, fucking God damn it. Herbert says like, "Oh, Missy didn't mean anything she said. She doesn't actually like him. She had her nipples covered. She has like tape over her nipples, and he keeps it because he's a stalker, apparently."
Right.
It's weird. My problem is, I thought about this. I cannot get out of my normal groove. I'm Kronk, okay? In this fucking movie, I am Kronk because I am stuck in my fucking groove, okay? I don't know what to talk about because none of it matters, but also all of it matters at the same time. So much of it is just trying to figure out how far down the rabbit hole Herbert's going to go. That's really all we need to see here, okay? Fucking Jesus Christ, I'm sweating and it's not even hot. We need to talk. So let's talk about Penn's character. Let's figure him out here. So Herbert has spent this entire time just talking about how talented he is and how, again, like I said, he starts to treat the movie like he starts to go over it, like he starts to blend the real life with the movie. And as we go along, we're going to see that he really just is delusional. Like he only sees Missy Pyle as Missy Pyle. The character Mabel doesn't exist for him. So no matter what Missy Pyle is doing, she's always trying to solve the Knocked Off case, okay? But it's still a movie to him. It's just, in that Missy Pyle, the actress is the character. And that's where it all goes crazy, because he starts interacting with her, because he himself just starts to treat everything in life like it's part of the movie. But he also knows that it's a movie. And it's just, and also he never shuts the fuck up. Just constantly doing something or saying something. Running his stupid, fat, fucking Neanderthal mouth. This entire time. Oh.
For the last 60 seconds, Larry's just been, like, rubbing his face with his hands. Like, the footage of you would be, like, when a parent finds out their kid got run over by a train.
I'm legitimately upset because I want to do a good job, but it's impossible. All right. So, back in the movie, in Knocked Off, Penn literally fast-forwards through the plot, cementing the fact that it isn't important. He fast-forwards through 2 more recreation murders and a bunch of scenes, including Charlie Manson recreations. And this is going to sound morbid because of what it is, because it actually happened in real life. But Charlie Manson is the funniest story on planet Earth to me, and I love it's amazing, and I don't know how it's real, and I would have actually liked to see that. So, again, just fuck me, right?
Yep, fuck you, Larry.
Yeah. So it just the knocked off plot really doesn't matter because it's all about Penn's movie at this. Fucking god damn it! Fucking Herbert's movie. I'm not even looking at the notes. It's Penn in my head. It's Herbert's movie at this point, and like the knocked off plot is just a vehicle for his vision, which is that Missy Pyle is in character all the time. So, there's two different Missies to the viewer, but there's just one to Penn. There's the actress and the character. Penn just sees the actress as the character. I've been over that. I'm losing my goddamn fucking mind. And those two aspects of Missy are the only real things that matter. And seeing Herbert disregard the one just becomes the plot as he goes more and more off the rails. So we see actress Missy eating lunch with a friend being filmed in real life, being filmed across the street by Herbert, like with his stalker cam. And he voices over both of them, like doing...
Oh, right.
He portrays actress Missy as character Missy and the friend as the director of the FBI. And he's going like, oh, I can't trust these cops and everything's going wrong. And the FBI director's like, oh, Missy, I've got it, found you a new partner. And this is it's about how good his estimation is. I've found you a new partner. And he's like making their sloppy lip flaps kind of flap the words very poorly.
Right.
So, yeah. And what that's supposed to determine is that in the plot of the movie, within the movie, the character Missy, because we're not in Knocked Off anymore, we're now in Director's Cut, the movie within Director's Cut, the movie. Fucking. I just feel defeated. I feel like I've lost at a game I've never played. I've never played craps, and I feel like I just lost $1,000 at craps.
I don't know if I've ever done so well to make you suffer.
Oh, you win. You win Battles of Amazon Prime. That's the only saving grace, is that you don't win Battles of Netflix because it's not on Netflix, so fuck you. And if with any luck, it never will be because no one's going to watch this. Not if I have my way. So, Isaac, I'll fucking suck your dick, you motherfucker. So, back in Knocked Off, Penn tells us there's a lot of important plot points about to happen, so he's going to shut up and let us listen. However, he starts to eat chips and drink soda and sneeze. It's actually, I think that's kind of funny a little bit because he's not doing it intentionally. It's just like actually him just kind of like being the character being candid and kind of funny. However, I don't like it because the sounds of people eating into microphones is utterly repulsive to me. I cannot. It's like an ASMR thing that I cannot stomach. I had to.
I'll just put that in my back pocket.
No, I can't do it. A podcast I really liked was Skull Juice with Dino Stamatopoulos and Andy Dick, and then not Andy Dick because he's a horrible human being. And eventually it was Dana Snyder who voices Master Shake in Aqua Teen Hunger Force, which that is a funny dude. They started like eating in the first 30 minutes of their podcast as part of it, and I couldn't listen to it anymore. I cannot listen to eating in my ears, so I can't. So this was gross. Yeah. So movie. We get another crime scene recreation here of Richard Speck, who killed nurses, and more hints within Knocked Off on who the in-movie murderer is. Some more bullshit behind the scenes stuff with Herbert chasing down Missy to collect on his reward dinner he paid for on Kickstarter, and while he's chasing her down, he's not like running her down yet. He will be. While he's doing that, he overhears her complaining to the director, the actual director, Adam Rifkin, that the actor who plays Godfrey, Harry Hamlin, put his tongue down her throat in the sex scene. Like he legitimately like got too handsy in a fake scene. So that happens, and Herbert overhears it. And later we see Herbert has snuck into her hotel room with night vision glasses to stare creepily over her bed, which is utterly terrifying. But here's where the thing starts to happen. Where we realize at this point we're supposed to get the idea that Herbert is incredibly creepy and he's incredibly terrifying, and what he might do to Missy Pyle is very much a point of suspense in this movie. But the problem is that because we hear Penn constantly and because we see him, he's just a nerd. There's never any suspense because...
Yeah, it never feels like a horror movie.
No, because the listener, the viewer, knows exactly who Herbert is, down to the fucking letter, because he never shuts the fuck up. There's never, and maybe a better film critic than I, and there certainly are. I'm not a professional by any stretch of the imagination. I think from doing this show, I'm getting better at it, but I'm not a professional. I do not have a huge base of movie knowledge. And maybe someone who's a better movie critic than I can look at this and say, there is a lot of, low-level suspense. And that's, maybe that is the suspense because we don't think that he's capable of what he's capable of. When he ends up doing, how far he does take it, maybe that is the suspense in it, but it never feels like it to me. Because he's such a fucking nerd. And I don't say that derogatorily, just to what the character of Herbert Blount is. He's a big, goofy nerd that it never feels like he's actually going to hurt her. He's going to stalk the fuck out of her, which is very much a crime, and is terrifying for the actual people it happens to, usually women, that it happens to. And fuck people who do that in real life, you can fuck off and die, but I don't get the sense that she is in danger, which I feel like is kind of what the movie was supposed to be. Don't you?
Yeah. I think it meant to be creepier than it ever came across.
Yeah, it doesn't really
and
come
Herbert's
across...
just so goofy.
Right. It's definitely a creepy thing he's doing, but I'm not skeeved out by it. And maybe someone who was stalked, which a lot of people are, and it's a terrible thing, maybe someone would be. So that might be just a lack of perspective on my part. That's me. I'm trying to be diplomatic there.
But a movie should get that across to people who haven't been in that situation, if that's what it's going for.
That's what you think, right?
It is.
That's so. I'm saying this not as so much as if that's the case. If you are someone who has been in that scenario, you've had someone stalk you. To someone outside of that, this is very poorly done. It seems like, because it doesn't. There's no sense of terror. And I don't know. I feel like I'm talking out of turn now. I'm not trying to speak out of turn. It just that's the important part, is that to me and to Isaac, it never felt like there was any suspense there, really. And that's a problem for the movie as a movie. Okay, that's I shouldn't get any further than that. That's the important part here. But so he's looking over her bed with these night vision goggles because he says he wanted to give a dream sequence, and the dream sequence is just. He just cobbles together a bunch of really weirdly edited footage to basically show, again, to solidify in his head now that the movie and real life have become one for him. The actors and characters are the same, all of them now. And, he sees himself as the victor, the hero. He calls himself the hero of the movie. He sees himself as he has to write himself into the movie to save the honor of Missy Pyle, who, for him, is both the actress and the character now, from the evil of Godfrey, who is both the character Godfrey, the detective, and the actor Harry Hamlin, who assaulted Missy Pyle, basically. Pretty much from this point on, it's just it's completely out of the fucking park, off the rails, because it's about to get really crazy in a lot of ways. So he goes to the dream sequence and cuts back to the hotel room where he's standing over her night vision goggles, and he almost gets caught and has to run away. And next day, we're still on pen cam. He chases down Missy and starts talking to her about the case as if it's real. But then, because he's actually talking to her, he breaks down into just being a fan again, which makes it really fucking confusing. Again, and it also gives us a lot more insight into the character of Herbert, which again makes him seem like a gigantic fucking nerd, because he tells her he's in love with her, and he has a tattoo of her on his fucking titty, which I don't know that Penn actually does, but honestly, it wouldn't surprise me that he would get that tattoo just for this movie. He seems like that kind of type of dude. I don't know.
If he did, he would show it in the movie.
He did. He shows the tattoo.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
But
somehow.
I don't know. It could be fake. I don't know.
Right,
just
yeah.
At this point, I just hate everything. I can't be trusted. So yeah, and he's talking about how Missy is trying to make him prove that he is truly trying to be her hero and that he truly is in love with her. And this is the part where it seems like it could be kind of creepy, and then we just get the air out of the balloon because it never goes beyond this level of creepiness. Because he follows her to her trailer, and he's telling her about the case and pretending it's real, and he tells her that she doesn't understand that, and she tried to get him kicked off set, and that's okay, but they're making a movie, and they need to make it right. And we see him kidnap her. So that happens. So,
all right.
Again, try to understand this is all happening within, like, the idea that Larry, sitting here watching this movie, is watching the director's cut of the movie Knocked Off. This is all part of it. Like, understand, because that's a key part of this whole thing, because we're getting commentary over this happening still. We're getting commentary over the scenes of Penn literally kidnapping Missy Pyle. Herbert kidnapping Missy Pyle. So, that's all part of this experience. This is why I compare it to something like a Memento, where it has this sort of very unique feel to it that's certainly very interesting. I certainly can say I've never seen anything like this, and I have to imagine I'll never see anything like it again. That doesn't make it good, which is kind of not in the same sense, but it's why I don't like Wes Anderson, because he's very quirky, but I don't think that makes it good, because I think a lot of the writing is very poor. Same thing here. Mm-hmm. Very unique idea, very strange execution, and the execution's so strange and poor that it makes it seem like it's not a good idea. It kind of creates the genre and kills it in one stroke, which, again, that might technically make it a masterstroke to certain groups of film critics. Why I would say people who like Troma would be that sort of crowd, would be the kind of crowd who would like this sort of thing. I personally despise it. So yeah, so Penn, Herbert kidnaps Missy Pyle because he tells her she needs her alone time. And the next day, we see, again from Penn Cam, that actress Missy has not shown up for the shoot. We see the director is like freaking out, and he's trying to figure out where she is. The actors are all like, well, what's happening? Okay, whatever. We see that today is they write her out of the scene that is going to happen today. And this is a scene that I swear they put in for one gag, and it sucks. Today is the recreation of the James Huberty massacre, who opened fire in the middle of a fast food joint. I'm actually not familiar with this one, but whatever. I don't give a fuck anymore. There's a long, drawn-out scene where the director... And again, this is part of the director's cut of the movie Knocked Off, because it's behind-the-scenes footage they got added to the movie. Imagine you're watching Die Hard, and Bruce Willis fucking Demi Moore... Well, that'd be interesting. Bruce Willis getting a head massage by Demi Moore is suddenly spliced into the movie as part of Die Hard. That's what we're looking at here. Understand, this is why I'm losing my goddamn mind. The director's passing out lines of... the lines that crowdfunders who paid for lines got. And we get to see all of them act, and they all suck, and we get to see that Herbert also very much sucks. He's the worst one of the bunch, and the rest of the actors are terrible. And we see that also, while everyone's preparing for the shot, we see Herbert stealing the footage so that he can edit the movie the way he wants to, and then we get the shooting scene. We get the entire scene, which Herbert tells us was cut out of the final version. It's another brutal mass shooting scene that, as always, makes me uncomfortable. We find out the reason it was cut is that after the end, and it's like a 4-minute scene of like this guy murdering people in a fucking restaurant, and then it was cut because at the very end of this scene, and they talk about how expensive it is and how they only had one shot at it. At the end of it, as everyone's running out of the restaurant, Herbert just walks up to this guy and with a big goofy Neanderthal smile on his face says his line. He delivers it terribly and ruins the whole shot. So great, just 15 minutes of this fucking movie wasted on that gag to show something I already know, because I know that Herbert sucks at everything, because that's been this entire movie. So great, fucking thanks for that. And it prepares us for what's coming next, I guess, for more of his acting. So in the next scene, we get shots of the detectives inside the movie Knocked Off calling Missy, which is spliced with footage of Missy, who's answering from Penn's weird director's/sex dungeon. He's got her chained to her chair, and he's got her in makeup and in dress, and basically like he spliced the scene in his own where he has her talking to these detectives in the movie, because now he's just splicing his own footage that he shoots with Missy into the actual movie of Knocked Off, which is a completed movie. So it's getting just completely fucked here. Everything is fucked. So yeah, she's reading Penn's cue cards and just sobbing uncontrollably the entire time. I'm sorry. Yeah, he has a scene where we see Herbert convinces a bunch of extras to like read lines off a script he wrote, and then he green screens Missy into it, who like is sobbing uncontrollably, reading a bunch of cue cards about how she says she's going to meet Herbert, who the character in the movie met online in like an online dating site, and he's going to help her solve the case because we're 12 fucking layers deep. We've peeled the entire onion and started on a second onion at this point. So we get the strip club scene we got from earlier again, but this time we get green screen superimposed over Missy and Harry Hamlin. We get Dungeon Missy and Herbert, where they basically recreate the same scene, except they're talking about the new parts of the plot, where in the plot of Knocked Off now, Missy and Herbert are conducting their own investigation parallel to the detectives in the case who are conducting their investigation, even though this is scenes from a sex dungeon, basically spliced in with Missy Pyle being held against her will. I think I'm in the Twilight Zone. I seriously, my brain stopped working in the middle of that sentence, and I don't remember what I just said. Was it an actual coherent sentence? And I swear to God, I'm not kidding. Did I just say a coherent sentence?
I believe so.
Okay. Oh, Jesus Christ. All right. So then we get to, we recreate the sex scene between Missy and Harry Hamlin's characters, but we get it with Missy from earlier in the movie with Herbert, who at one point in the sex scene has to take off his clothes and instead takes off his ridiculous suit jacket and does the sex scene fully clothed, superimposed, very shoddily green screen superimposed over Harry Hamlin over the same footage. My only complaint is recycled footage. I would take a bullet to the head right now if you offered it to me. So it's literal insanity. How did I make it this far? I cannot wait to hear my fellow D&D player Paul, who we mentioned a couple episodes ago, as he texted me while we were recording. I want to hear if he's able to make any fucking sense to this. If you have been listening to this show and you haven't emailed in, please, I'm asking you to email in and tell me, if without watching this movie, if it makes any goddamn fucking sense to you. Because it's so insane. And to wit, to show that insanity, the next scene shows Missy on a bed in front of a green screen set in Penn's basement again, which is just the room of a teenage girl to show that Herbert is completely out of his fucking mind. Because, like, she's in, like, a bed with, like, a rainbow name tag. And this is supposed to be in the movie. This is supposed to be the same character that the FBI agent in the movie. It's so fucking off the wall. And, like, there's a big picture of Herbert on the wall, green screened in, and Jesus Christ. She talks more about the pretty much off the rails plot of the goddamn Knocked Off plot at this point. And then this leads to a scene where she says she's going to take a shower to think about it. And we get Herbert's director's commentary saying, nudity is important in a movie sometimes, and this scene shows Missy's vulnerabilities. And she takes off her dress to reveal that she's wearing flesh-colored bra and panties with nipples and bush drawn on them.
All right.
Because this movie is completely goddamn insane. And not in a good way. Just, she gets into a homemade shower and she starts screaming at Herbert because it's cold and she's screaming to be let go. And then the next, it cuts and she's now handcuffed to a chair and has to do her lines in freezing cold water. Which is, again, it's creepy because she is crying and terrified and angry. But it's not creepy because Penn's just so goofy. Herbert's so goofy. It's just
there's no tension.
No, there's no tension, and there's no real idea that she's in danger. Like, I don't know. I don't know. So we go to the police station in real life. Like, the cast of the movie goes to the police station to report the actress Missy is missing, and Herbert sort of what's the word I'm looking for? He like contributes this to the fact that, the police don't know that Missy and I are working on the case together, so they're gonna go. They think it's silly that she's not on set for the movie. I can't. I can't do it.
Oh god.
So Harry Hamlin, who's the actor who plays Godfrey, and also the actor who plays Harry Hamlin, and also an actor named Harry Hamlin, is married in real life to one of the fucking women on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And that character, that woman, his wife, is in this show, is in this movie. Okay, this is, I'm going to call an audible here and describe this to you exactly. I don't have this written down, okay? So get this fucking shit. So they go, in the context of director's cut, capital D, capital C, the actress Missy Pyle has actually gone missing, right? And they go to the police station to file a police report, the cast of the movie, because she's disappeared from the set, to find out where she is. And the actor, Harry Hamlin, in real life is married to this woman, I don't remember her name, Lisa something. She kept her last name because she's famous. I don't remember what it is. She is an actual star of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and it brings her camera crew there. And that camera crew is now part of this movie, director's cut, but they're also filming it as part of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. This was actually in that show.
That's pretty great.
Which shows that all reality shows are fucking bumkiss, by the way, kids. For all of you who thought they were real. They're fucking bullshit, and here's proof. So, this is so many layers of meta that I actually want to slit my own throat. Because, they show the scene from the episode of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills where she talks about this happening as if it was real life, and how she's... Okay. Fucking just... So, yeah, alright. We cut back to Knocked Off. We get a brief establishing shot that, I swear to fucking Christ, it's Seinfeld's apartment from the show Seinfeld. Don't watch this movie, because I don't want him to get a single second of satisfaction on my fucking suffering. By that I mean Penn. But I do want you to go, and I want you to do this, Isaac, when we're done. We're going to talk about it before we sign off. The timestamp is 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 50 seconds. It is just Jerry Seinfeld's apartment from the outside. I cannot unsee it. I've watched that show since I was goddamn 7 years old. It's what it is, and that's all I could think about, because I needed something to grasp on that made sense. So anyway, in the Knocked Off plot, we get the reveal that Hamlin, Godfrey, who was the prime suspect of the entire time of the Knocked Off plot, is not the killer, but is in fact his partner Reed. This is the quietest that Herbert ever is during the entire movie, because he takes the time to draw Missy's face on the screen and generally just make noises and complain, instead of constantly flapping his big fucking jowls. Now, we cut to another superimposed green screen shot of Missy and Herbert, which is more of the same, but I bring it up only because they get weirdly purple for a minute, which I guess that just has to do with the green screen editing. You mentioned it to me, and then after you did, that's all I could see when I watched it again. So, I don't know. It's just more of Penn being shit. And now, Penn is at home with Missy. Not Penn. Herbert is at home with Missy when the cops pay him a visit. Actual cops. This is not part of Knocked Off, but part of people actually investigating him. Now, folks, I want to... this should hopefully be the last time I break away from this. But when I write my reviews, I write out a lot of stuff. I write out a lot of details. I write out... A lot of the things I say are written out. I mean, maybe 50% of what I say is something I've thought of before and written out, because I write pretty well on the fly. I usually can make it work. At this point, I wrote, talk about the ending, go fuck yourself, and close my laptop. And there is when I say the ending, there's 30 minutes left of this movie. I gave up. I gave up.
I can't blame you, sir.
Because it's just too much. So, these cops come to visit Herbert. His delusions have reached a fever pitch. He talks about the Gilbert Gottfried scene he talked about earlier, where he talked about not letting cops in, blah, blah, blah. Missy's in his basement screaming for fucking help. He makes the cops come back because they don't have a warrant. we get the climax of Knocked Off, but now recall that in the story of Knocked Off, the director's cut by Herbert Blount, Herbert himself and Missy are now partners chasing down Reed, who is the actual Knocked Off killer. So, in the original, unedited, not director's cut version of Knocked Off, we saw Missy and Godfrey go after Reed. In this version, the director's cut version, we have we have Herbert and Missy, Dungeon Missy, superimposed over Godfrey and actress Missy, because there's 3 to 4 different Missies at any point. Just replaying these same scenes. And, like, since they're in a basement with a green screen, they have to, like, run in place, and they have ridiculous gun sound effects. And, like, I thought it was kind of weird here, because Missy's been acting really terribly up to this point, and, like, not really getting into it. But in this, like, climax scene, she actually... Dungeon Missy tries to act, even though she's, like, has Stockholm Syndrome. Because I think even at this point, even she realizes that this guy is such a fucking dork that he's no threat to her. Other than the fact that he has her tied up in his basement. He's, like, weirdly just a guy. Because, like, her acting goes from being terrified to just exasperated. And she just sort of, like, kind of goes along with it now. And, like, is acting poorly, but not just entirely sobbing the whole time. So, we get the climax of this fucking movie. It's a car chase where Herbert and Missy are chasing Reed, and he does an impromptu stunt where he makes a toy car do about 25 flips in slow motion, and then just cuts back into the movie, even though the car is still fine. Whatever. I don't fucking care. Trauma level stuff. That's the kind of shit Trauma does. Fuck you, Trauma. Fuck you, Penn Jillette. Fuck you, Isaac. Fuck all of you. So, suck my taints. All my taints. 10. I have 5 taints.
It's a lot of taints.
I suck my taints. Suck them. So, yeah, they get the shootout. It's ridiculous. Herbert and Missy are superimposed over each other and themselves, and then at the end of it, they fucking. So. The last scene of the Knocked Off director's cut... Jesus fucking Christ. Even speaking about it makes me angry. I'm angry at myself now for even trying to explain it. So, Missy, he has her tied up, and they're going to shoot a scene as if they're relaxing in Hawaii when there's another knock on the door. So Herbert goes upstairs because he thinks that it was the cops again, and we see footage that he himself has spliced in of Missy escaping her bonds in the basement. Where we find out it's actually just Mormons who've come to the door, and he ignores them. He goes back downstairs where Missy has armed herself with a camera. She smacks him in the face with the camera, and he films it as if it's her. He also filmed a scene of like them green screen running on a beach towards each other, and he talks about it as if it's sometimes the hero has to know to let his lady love go because she needs to live her own life, even though He tries to rationalize all of it. He tries to rationalize his insanity. That's it. Okay, that's what all this is. I don't know why it's such a fucking chore to get through and to talk about. So that's pretty much the scene. And the credits start to roll after she cracks him in the face with the camera and he falls to his fucking hopeful, not death, but the credits are rolling and we cut to Herbert in prison where he is looking at, and it's cutting to now the prison camera footage, where he is talking about how he is editing his director's cut. And we see a prison guard come in to collect him, who is played by Matt Donnelly, of the host of Ice Cream Social, which is cool.
Yep.
He's a cool guy, very funny dude.
He's got like 8 seconds of screen time, a couple lines.
Yeah.
He's fine.
And we see that Herbert is trying to reason with him and be like, hey, look, I'm just finishing VO. I'm going to give you a director's credit. How do you want to be credited? It'll be on IMDb. And he talks about how he's going to win an Academy Award. He gets led back into his cell. We're like following from the cameras because this too is part of the movie because Herbert is just completely fucking insane. And then we cut and we see executive producer, prison guard Samuel Parks, because that's what Herbert offered to the prison guard that played by Matt Donnelly. And we get the actual credits, and I want to die for real. Thank the fucking Lord.
Oh, shit.
I am so sorry. I really am. I'm sorry this movie exists. I'm sorry I had to watch it, and I'm sorry this review sucked, because it did. It sucked to get through. It sucked to have to listen to. You only had to listen to it once. Holy fuck, Isaac! What the fuck was that?
I don't know. Obviously never had a movie quite like that.
No, I don't think there ever will be one again. It's really unique in that regard, where it's definitely one of a kind. Because I mean, holy shit, you're never gonna have anything like this again.
Yeah, I don't really know how you could.
No,
but
so tell me more about your thoughts on it. Like, I've vomited words for 2 hours. Like, I definitely hated it. Okay, hold on one more second. I'm sorry. Let me get through the rating, and then I'm done forever. I did not like it. I give this a 2 out of 10 because it technically gets the point across. It's just such a shit fest of getting there, and it's like, yeah, you get, like, it accomplishes its goal of showing you this guy who's delusional and kidnaps a woman to make a movie, but it just sucks. It's just not good, and it's not fun. I don't think it's the worst thing I ever saw, but I never want to see it again, and it's probably made me the most stressed out of any Bowles movie, just because it's such a lump. I don't know what to say about it. So,
it's bizarre. I just never, like, I came into it really expecting it to be good. And I'd heard about it for years, never went and bought it, but was kind of waiting for it to come out streaming. And then I heard it finally was on Amazon Prime, was really excited for it. And I think that's probably why I have such a reaction, because, some whatever shitty movie, The Canyons or Fever Pitch, like, I know it's going to suck going into it.
Right.
So I don't have that letdown. And this just didn't click with me at all.
No, nor me.
I mean, there were clever parts, there were funny parts, but overall, I was not entertained. I wasn't engaged. I didn't really find it all that funny.
No, it's not funny at all. I mean, like, I got, like, a smile at the scene where, like, he starts eating over the scene, and because he's, like, while he's stuffing his face full of chips, he's like, oh, no, listen, this is really important, with, like, a mouthful of chips. That's vaguely funny, but I didn't laugh at any point, not even once, because it's just so fucking dumb.
Yeah, it just, I don't know, I guess I never could really engage with it, or, because I watched it in, like, chunks, too, because I put it on for 30 minutes, and it was like, what the fuck is this? And, like, had to go away and not keep watching it, but then I wanted to finish it. I don't know. I don't know exactly how to describe how I hate it, but just...
You had a lot more build-up for it than I did, so you went to it with higher hopes and expectations of what it could be, because you very talented man was at the helm of the entire thing.
Yeah. Well, it's like if the last season of Game of Thrones sucks.
I think it may.
But yeah, it'd probably be better than a lot of other TV shows, even if it sucks.
Right. Well, I don't think that's the case for the director's cut.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Just on paper, this probably isn't the worst movie that we've covered, but I just kind of feel like it is. I feel affronted.
I definitely feel affronted. It's just... that's the thing, because it's technically not the worst, because it aggravates me. Like, I'm not furious. I'm not full of hate like I was for Love, Wedding, Marriage or Naked or Leo the Lion or anything like that, but I'm aggravated by all of it. Like, what? Like, this is not, it's hardly even a movie. Once you get so far out of the realm of, like, when you break all the rules, you're not playing, if you break all the rules of football, after a while, you're not playing football anymore.
Right, yeah.
It's just, and it's like, it's not what I wanted. It's not, I can't imagine anyone would want this. Which I get, and I'm sure his response would be like, well, it's for me, not for you guys. Which I technically have to respect, because I do shit that's just for me too. So I guess
he
whatever.
pretty much said that. It was like, yeah, the crowdfunders will get it, and they'll like it, because they like this kind of stuff. And it's definitely not for everyone.
Oh, there's a couple reviews from the crowdfunders who are not pleased. No, I mean, I saw maybe 3, but...
Right, yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. Same as you. I couldn't connect with it, man. It's a very unique movie. That much, 1,000% props to that. I've never seen anything quite like it. That does not make it good.
Right.
So, that's that, man. I am Oh boy, I've never dreaded a review so much. Like I dread writing the reviews because it's long and I sometimes go actually insane. Like with Naked, I went actually insane the second time I was writing a review. And when I wrote Love, Wedding, Marriage, like I was literally pounding the keyboard. I was typing so hard. But like this, I've never dreaded talking about it so much because I want very desperately to do good, to be a good boy. I want to be the best boy, and I can't because this movie's made it impossible. And for that, it always holds a certain place of distaste in my heart.
Yeah, I don't know how I would even begin to review this, so I definitely understand your predicament.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting. It's definitely good to get a wide array of movies, too.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's nothing else like this, so.
No, there is not. Okay.
All right, well.
Yeah, fucking get this over with.
Thank you all so much for listening. We got Twitter, we got Facebook. Those are both at Battles of Netflix. You can send us an email, battlesofnetflix@gmail.com. You can let Larry know if any of this made sense, or if you have a picture in your head of what this movie is.
I really do not encourage you to watch it. I really don't. I don't want. It has so few. It's got to have so few views on whatever that I don't want that number to go up. But I want to know if this even made sense, because I'm gonna eagerly listen to this and see if I can even fucking understand what I'm talking about.
Well, make sure to stick around, because next week the tables are turned and I will be discussing a movie called Doom, based on the first-person shooter video game of great acclaim and fame, and starring The Rock of great acclaim and fame.
I'm excited for this.
Oh God, it's a cartoon.
It really
real
is.
People are in it.
I apparently the ending scene, which I haven't watched, but I because I've watched the first couple of minutes. I want to watch the ending scene because apparently people fucking love it. The first person, people went insane over that. The movie's universally hated, but apparently people 1,000% love that. And I've played Doom, and you haven't, so I'm very curious to see how that actually works out.
All right. Well,
you got something
we'll
to look forward to. That's not this. Yeah, Let's never talk about this again.
Deal.
I'm dying.
Well, thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week.
Smell you never.